Good evening, and welcome to another quiet journey through history with the drowsy historian. Tonight, we find ourselves stepping back into the foggy streets of Tudor London. The year is sometime in the middle of the 16th century, the reign of King Henry VIII. The city is alive, teeming with sound, scent, and struggle. Its narrow lanes, packed with timber-brick buildings, lean in upon themselves, creating canyons of shadow and filth. The air is heavy with the damp scent of wood smoke, tallow, unwashed bodies, and the refuse of countless animals and people. London, even in its grandeur, is a city of hardship for most of its inhabitants. In this journey, you will follow the daily rhythms of ordinary Londoners. You will step into their homes, feel the mud beneath your feet, hear the clang of the market, and witness the quieter mysteries hidden beneath the city. There will be moments of curiosity, glimpses of faded glory, and reflections upon a life that was often difficult and brief. But remember, this is a soothing story, intended to calm the mind and ease you towards sleep. Take a slow breath, settle in. Let your imagination drift gently through the past. Tonight, we begin with the daily life of London's poor. Imagine yourself in their worn shoes, walking the muddy streets. Chapter 1: Empty Stomach and Muddy Streets. Picture the dawn breaking over Tudor London. The first thin light creeps through low clouds, turning the narrow streets from inky black to a murky gray. The city stirs slowly. There are no gas lamps here, no soft modern lights. Only the glow of a few dying hearths behind shuttered windows, the faint flicker of a tallow candle or two. The streets are slick with last night's rain. Mud mixes with the waste of horses, pigs, and people. Each footstep lands with a soft squelch. For the city's poor, this is the start of another long, uncertain day. Food is never guaranteed. The last of the coarse bread may have been eaten the night before. Thin broth, if it can be managed, is all that awaits. Hunger gnaws at the belly. The heavy scent of smoke hangs in the air as small fires are coaxed to life. Men and women pull on simple woolen garments, patched and worn. Children shiver in thin shifts, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Outside, the first carts begin to rattle over the uneven cobbles. Merchants, bakers, butchers, and craftsmen make their way toward the market. The city's many tradespeople are already at work. Blacksmiths hammer metal, their rhythmic strikes ringing faintly in the cool air. Weavers adjust looms. Fishmongers arrange their slippery wares upon rough wooden stalls. For the laboring poor, there's work to be found, but little of it steady or secure. Day laborers cluster at street corners, hoping to be chosen for the day's tasks. They are builders, haulers, muck sweepers, ready to toil for a few meager pence. Those not chosen will likely go hungry. Women take on laundry, mending, or scullery work if it can be found. The life of a commoner is one of constant seeking, of stretching each coin and crumb as far as possible. Imagine yourself now, stepping carefully through the narrowest alleys. Above, the overhanging upper stories of houses nearly touch. Water drips from their edges. The ground beneath your feet is thick with mire. Wreaths dart in the shadows. The clamor of the city begins to rise, voices mingling with the creak of carts and the bleating of animals. The scent of baking bread wafts from a distant bakery, tantalizing but out of reach for many. As the morning advances, the streets grow crowded. Peddlers call out their wares. A boy shouts about hot meat pies. A tooth drawer demonstrates his skills to a wary crowd. The occasional noble on horseback forces a path through the press, accompanied by liveried servants. The divide between rich and poor is visible in every step, every glance. For the common folk, midday brings no respite. If there is work, it continues. If not, the day is spent seeking odd tasks, begging, or idly passing the hours in alehouses, if a coin can be spared. Hunger remains a constant companion. Water is drawn from public wells, sometimes fouled, sometimes fresh. Many choose to drink ale instead, weak but safer than the murky water. Children play in the streets, their games interrupted by passing carts or irritable adults. Their laughter is bright, though their clothes are threadbare. Illness is common. Coughs echo from shuttered rooms. Pox marks many faces. Life here is precarious. Death is never far. Yet amidst the struggle, life continues. Families gather what they can. Neighbors trade small favors. Simple joys are found in music and shared tales by the fire and the warmth of companionship. The rhythm of life here is slow but persistent, marked by hardship, by small victories, by enduring hope. As the sun begins its slow descent, shadows lengthen across the muddy streets. The workday winds down, markets close. Laborers return to cramped dwellings. The scent of cheap pottage fills the air. Fires are stoked against the evening chill. The streets quiet somewhat, though the occasional shout or song still rings out. In this world, survival is a daily effort. The poor of Tudor London face each dawn with little certainty of what it may bring. Yet they endure, moving with the city's rhythm, bound by need, by community, by the simple determination to live another day. As twilight deepens, the city shifts again. The crowds thin, though London never truly sleeps. Many of the poor retreat indoors, seeking warmth where they can. The buildings are close, their timbered walls leaning with age, the ceilings low and smoke-stained. Within, hearths burn weakly. The glow is dim, barely enough to see by. Furniture is sparse, rough-hewn, shared by large families or groups of lodgers. Straw-stuffed mattresses are laid upon the floor. Fleas are a constant nuisance. The air grows thick with the mingled scents of sweat, smoke, and cooking. The evening meal, for those fortunate enough to have it, is simple. Perhaps a bowl of thin pottage, made from scraps and boiled greens. A hunk of dark bread, rough and coarse, often stretched with less than fresh grains. Meat is a rare indulgence, more often saved for festival days. For many, the meal is eaten in near silence, exhaustion dulling conversation. Children huddle near their mothers, seeking comfort. The cold seeps through walls and floor alike. Outside, the streets darken. Without modern lamps, only the moon and a few scattered torches offer light. Shadows stretch across the muck-filled lanes. The city takes on a different tone at night. Gangs of cutpurses and thieves move quietly, preying upon the unwary. The watch patrols with lanterns and staves, but their presence is thin. Alehouses remain lively. Through cracked shutters, the sound of rough laughter and drunken songs drifts into the night air. For those unable to afford a roof, the streets offer little shelter. Vagrants seek corners beneath archways or huddle beneath carts. The chill bites through thin garments. Illness claims many. No charitable hand provides for these outcasts. In the eyes of the law, poverty itself is a crime, and beggars risk being driven out or worse. Still, the desperate persist, for there is no other choice. Within the cramped dwellings, sleep comes fitfully. The noise of the streets, the coughs and murmurs of others sharing the space, the itching bite of insects, all disturb the night. Dreams are shaped by the hunger in the belly and the uncertainty of tomorrow. Yet there is resilience here. The people of London's poorest wards have learned to endure, to carve out moments of connection, to grasp what small joys life offers. As dawn approaches once more, the city stirs again. A rooster's call breaks the stillness. Fires are coaxed to life, filling homes with warmth and smoke. The streets, still slick with last night's rain, await new footsteps. The cycle of survival begins anew, and so ends our glimpse into the daily life of London's poor. A world of constant challenge, of fleeting comforts, of perseverance in the face of hardship. Now, let us turn our attention to a different corner of Tudor life, where the stakes were no less high, though they played out in gilded halls and whispered intrigues. Chapter 2: The Fall of Anne Boleyn at the glittering heights of Tudor society. Life was governed by ambition, alliances, and the ever-shifting favor of the king. Now, imagine yourself within the vast stone walls of the royal court at Whitehall Palace. The ceilings rise high overhead, beams carved with heraldic symbols, tapestries lining the halls to ward off the chill. Servants move silently along the corridors, their footsteps muffled by rushes spread across the floors. It is the spring of 1536. The court, though outwardly splendid, hums with tension. Rumors swirl like smoke. Eyes glance sideways. No one dares speak too loudly. The Queen, Anne Boleyn, has begun to fall from favor. Anne had once been the bright star of the Tudor court, witty, charming, sharp of mind and tongue. Her rise had been meteoric, captivating Henry VIII so fully that he had broken with the Pope to make her queen. But now, only 3 years after her coronation, her fortunes had turned. Political enemies circled. The king's gaze had drifted to Jane Seymour, a lady of the court. And most damning of all, Anne had failed to produce a male heir. In the rigid expectations of Tudor monarchy, this failure left her vulnerable. The court is a place of calculated politeness. Courtiers bow and curtsy, offer smiles, but their loyalties shift with the winds. Letters are written in cipher. Messages pass quietly through the hands of servants. The great lords and ladies observe everything, weighing their words, measuring every glance. To fall from favor is to risk ruin, or worse. Anne herself moves through these halls with poise, her chin held high, her dress of rich fabrics trailing softly behind her. But those closest to her can sense her growing unease. In private chambers, council meetings grow more heated. Thomas Cromwell, the king's chief minister, has begun to build a case against her. He draws upon whispers of indiscretions, assembling a web of accusation. Small gestures, passing conversations are twisted into evidence of treason. The charge will not be simple infidelity, but adultery against the king, a crime tantamount to treason in Tudor law. Whether the accusations are true matters little. What matters is that they serve a political purpose. Cromwell's enemies within court factions lend their voices. The Queen's allies grow silent or distant. Meanwhile, Anne carries on with her royal duties. She attends mass, receives ambassadors, hosts entertainments. Her outward grace never falters, though her thoughts must race. Who among her courtiers has betrayed her? Who now avoids her gaze? In the king's presence, she remains careful, choosing her words with precision. But Henry grows colder. His smiles fade. His affections turn elsewhere. The Queen's position grows precarious with each passing day. News of Anne's faltering standing spread quickly beyond the court. In London streets and taverns, speculation runs wild. The common people, ever hungry for gossip, whisper of the Queen's pride, her enemies, her uncertain future. Pamphlets appear, penned anonymously. Even the foreign ambassadors writing home note the Queen's peril. In this world, reputation is everything. Once lost, it is near impossible to regain. By late April, the net draws tighter. Anne's movements are watched more closely. Certain gentlemen of the court, once favored companions, find themselves arrested. Among them are musicians, courtiers, even her own brother. The accusations grow darker. The charges are grave. Few doubt what must soon follow. Within the palace, Anne remains composed, yet the weight of suspicion cannot be ignored. Her household shrinks as some servants quietly take leave. Allies counsel caution, though none can offer true safety. The queen continues to attend public functions, each appearance now shadowed by unspoken dread. The court, for all its splendor, has become a cage. In early May, Anne is summoned to the tower. The dreaded order comes not with fanfare, but with cold, official words. She complies with dignity, knowing resistance is futile. As her barge moves silently down the Thames, past the towers and spires of London, the city watches. The tide has turned fully against her. Within the stone walls of the tower, Anne awaits her fate. The rooms are not those of a common prisoner. She is housed in the Queen's lodgings, richly appointed yet heavy with the weight of history. It was here that queens before her had come before their coronations. Now it serves as her place of confinement. Outside, guards pace in measured steps. Visitors are few. The days pass slowly, each marked by the tolling of distant bells. Still, Anne maintains her composure. She speaks clearly when questioned, denies the charges, asserts her innocence. Yet the outcome is all but certain. The trial will come not as a fair inquiry, but as a public spectacle. The king's will is clear. The machinery of Tudor justice has begun its grim work, and there will be no turning back. The morning of Anne's trial arrives with cool gray skies. The tower's thick walls seem to press inward, muffling the usual sounds of the waking city beyond. A steady breeze stirs the banners that flutter upon the turrets. Within the tower's halls, guards move with quiet purpose. Courtiers, summoned as witnesses or observers, gather in solemn groups. The queen herself prepares with measured grace. Her gown is carefully chosen, a dark silk that speaks of dignity. Her hair is dressed simply. There is no sign of panic in her manner, only a calm resolve. The trial is held in the great hall of the tower. A space meant for grand ceremonies now serves as a stage for judgment. Wooden benches are arranged for the noble peers who will sit in judgment. The king is absent, as expected. He need not appear. His wishes are known. Among the spectators are lords and ladies, many of whom once fawned upon Anne during her days of favor. Now they watch with cold detachment, their own positions carefully preserved through silence. Anne stands before her accusers with head held high. Her voice, when she speaks, is clear and steady. She denies each charge with calm precision, refuting accusations of adultery, treason, and conspiracy. Yet the evidence, shaped and sharpened by Cromwell's hand, is overwhelming. Witnesses speak of secret meetings, of words twisted to imply intent. The Queen's protestations fall upon indifferent ears. The verdict, though not yet spoken, is already sealed. When the judgment comes, it is read with formality. Anne is condemned to death. The sentence is execution by beheading, to be carried out upon the Tower Green. A small mercy, compared to the more brutal fates others might face. Anne receives the sentence without outward display of fear. She bows her head in acceptance, then is led away to her quarters within the tower to await her final hour. News spreads quickly through London. In taverns and markets, the people murmur. The fall of a queen is a rare and terrible thing. Some express pity, others scorn. For many, it is but one more spectacle in a city accustomed to the drama of the court. The bells toll, their solemn notes echoing through the narrow streets. In the palace, preparations are already underway for the king's next marriage. Life at court moves forward, indifferent to the tragedy about to unfold. In her final days, Anne prepares herself with prayer and reflection. She receives a few visitors, speaks with her chaplain, and arranges small comforts for her household. Her composure never wavers. She requests that her executioner, a skilled swordsman from Calais, be summoned, sparing her the clumsy axe. The request is granted. Even now, dignity is preserved where possible. On the appointed morning, Anne rises early. The sun has barely touched the highest towers when the summons comes. She dresses with care, choosing a gown of simple elegance. Upon her head she wears a modest coif. Accompanied by a small escort, she walks steadily to the scaffold erected upon the green. The space is enclosed, witnessed only by select courtiers and guards. The crowd outside presses close, straining for a glimpse. Anne addresses those present with poise. Her words are measured, her tone without bitterness. She speaks of her loyalty to the king, her acceptance of God's will. There's no accusation, no plea for mercy. Her dignity in this final moment is complete. Then she kneels, placing her head upon the block, her hands folded in prayer. The executioner, swift and practiced, completes his grim task with a single stroke. A hush falls upon the watching crowd. For a moment, all is still. Then the business of the court resumes. The queen is gone. Within hours, preparations for the next royal wedding begin. In the days that follow, Anne is laid to rest within the chapel of St. Peter at Vincula, her name already fading from the lips of those who once praised her. Thus ends the fall of Anne Boleyn, a tale of ambition, triumph, and ruin played out upon the grand stage of Tudor power. The court moves on, its intrigues never ceasing, its dangers ever present. Now, let us leave these halls of power and turn instead to the hidden corners of London itself. If you are ready, I will continue with Chapter 3, Segment 1. Simply type continue. Chapter 3, London's Lost Rivers. Beneath the bustling streets of Tudor London lay a hidden world. The city was built atop a network of ancient waterways, long forgotten by most of its inhabitants. These rivers, once clear streams that wound through the green meadows of earlier centuries, had over time become choked and obscured. As London expanded, its growth consumed the landscape, reshaping the flow of water and burying its sources beneath layers of stone and timber. Yet, in the 16th century, echoes of these lost rivers still whispered beneath the city. Imagine yourself now standing upon a narrow bridge spanning one such watercourse. The Fleet River, once a broad and lively stream, now runs sluggish and dark. Its banks are lined with the refuse of the city. Tanners and dyers have long used the river for their trades, pouring chemicals and waste into its flow. The air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth, mingled with the acrid smell of dyes and the sharp tang of decaying matter. Rats scurry along the banks. Children dare one another to dip sticks into the water, laughing and pulling back at the foul slime that clings to them. In other parts of the city, smaller streams have been channeled underground. Wooden culverts and stone-lined drains carry their waters beneath the streets, out of sight but not entirely out of mind. In quieter moments, one might hear the faint trickle of water beneath the paving stones or glimpse a sudden dampness seeping upward from below. These hidden rivers still shape the life of the city in subtle ways, feeding wells, softening foundations, and occasionally swelling during heavy rains to flood the streets above. For the common people, these waterways are both a nuisance and a necessity. They serve as open sewers, carrying away the waste of countless households, yet they also provide water for washing, for cooking, even for drinking when no better source is at hand. The Thames itself, grand and broad, receives the flow of these lesser streams. Floating timbers, animal carcasses, and all manner of detritus drift with the tide. At times, the lost rivers reveal themselves in unexpected ways. A sudden collapse of a street might uncover an ancient culvert, long forgotten. Workmen repairing a foundation might break through into an old stream, finding cool, dark water still flowing beneath the earth. Such discoveries are treated with wary curiosity. The city remembers its past in fragments, the old and the new entwined. Certain trades depend upon these hidden waters. The brewers of London draw their supplies from wells fed by underground streams, choosing their locations carefully to avoid the worst of the city's contamination. Water carriers ply the streets, selling barrels of relatively clean water drawn from favored springs. Yet the quality is never guaranteed. Illness often follows the use of tainted supplies, a grim reminder of the unseen forces at work beneath the city. Among the superstitious, tales persist of spirits dwelling in the old rivers. Some speak of ghostly figures seen at the edges of the Fleet on misty mornings. Others claim that the lost waters remember those who drowned within them, their voices rising with the tide. Whether such tales hold truth or not, they reflect a deep-seated awareness of the river's enduring presence beneath the ever-growing city. As you wander these streets, take note of the subtle signs. A sudden dip in the road, a stretch of damp, a faint odor carried on the breeze. The lost rivers of London are never far away, shaping the city in ways both visible and hidden. Though buried beneath stone and timber, they endure, flowing through the heart of the ancient metropolis. In the depths of night, when the streets of London grow quiet and the clamor of the day fades, the presence of the hidden rivers becomes more tangible. The sound of trickling water seems louder in the hush. Faint mists rise from certain low-lying alleys, clinging to the worn stones. The old waterways, though diminished and fouled, still breathe beneath the city's surface. Those who walk these streets after dark may sense the subtle currents that linger just out of sight. In some quarters, the lost rivers shape the very life of the neighborhood. Tanneries cluster near the courses of old streams, their trade reliant upon a steady supply of water. The stench of treated hides and chemical runoff fills the air, marking these areas as places of toil and discomfort. Dye works, too, line the banks of hidden channels, their vivid colors staining not only cloth but the waters themselves. In such places, the ground is often soft, the streets prone to sinking or collapse. Builders work with caution, mindful of the treacherous foundations beneath. Certain caverns and cellars reveal further secrets. In some, old arches and tunnels hint at earlier river paths. A damp chill lingers in these spaces, the walls darkened by centuries of moisture. Patrons speak of hearing the faint gurgle of unseen streams, especially after heavy rains. It is said that a few of these passages once allowed smugglers to move goods unseen, though such stories are often half-truth and embellishment. The Thames, receiving the flow of these hidden waters, serves as the great artery of London. By day, it is crowded with craft of every kind, from grand barges to humble ferries. Its banks bustle with activity, merchants unloading goods, fishermen tending their nets. Yet the river's broad expanse does not fully cleanse it. The effluent of countless homes and workshops pours into its depths. The water, murky and shifting with the tide, carries away the refuse of the city. Yet it also nourishes life, feeding the marshes and gardens along its banks. For those living close to the old river courses, the dangers are familiar. Heavy rains can cause the streams to swell, backing up through drains and flooding streets and cellars. The poorer quarters are especially vulnerable. In such times, families scramble to raise their belongings, to stave off the encroaching filth. Disease often follows, as stagnant water breeds sickness. In an age with little understanding of sanitation, these outbreaks are met with resignation rather than remedy. Yet the lost rivers also offer moments of beauty. In certain forgotten corners, a glimpse of clear water may yet be found, trickling through a moss-lined channel or reflecting the light of a full moon. These rare sights remind some of an older London, a city of meadows and streams now buried beneath centuries of stone and labor. Poets and scholars sometimes speak of the rivers as the city's hidden soul, flowing unseen through its heart. As London grows, more of these waterways will vanish beneath new construction. Bridges give way to culverts. Open channels are paved over. The memory of the rivers lingers in the names of streets and wards, in the gentle dips of the land, in the occasional spring that bubbles forth where none is expected. In time, many will forget the living streams that once shaped the city's form. But for now, in the Tudor age, the lost rivers remain, a quiet presence beneath the ceaseless life of the capital. Their waters flow on, unseen but enduring, beneath the feet of those who walk the crowded streets above. Chapter 4, A Tudor Banquet Now. Let us step into a different world. Imagine yourself passing beneath the grand stone archways of a nobleman's great house, or even within one of the royal palaces. The air grows warmer as you move indoors, scented with beeswax, herbs, and the faint aroma of roasted meats drifting from distant kitchens. Tapestries line the high walls, their colors rich though somewhat faded, depicting scenes of hunting, of saints, of ancient battles. The stone floors are strewn with fresh rushes mixed with fragrant flowers to sweeten the air. It is the eve of a great banquet, one of those lavish affairs that define life among the upper ranks of Tudor society. Guests begin to arrive, their carriages rattling into courtyards, their cloaks shimmering with embroidery and jewels. Servants in fine livery stand ready to receive them, offering deep bows and practiced smiles. The murmur of conversation fills the hall as greetings are exchanged. Old alliances renewed, rivalries masked by polite words. This is not merely a feast, but a political theater where favor is won and lost with equal swiftness. In the great hall, long wooden tables are laid with gleaming pewter and silverware. Great chandeliers of wrought iron hang from the ceiling, their countless candles casting a warm, flickering light across the room. The air hums with anticipation. Musicians tune their instruments. Pages scurry back and forth with last-minute preparations. At the high table, beneath a canopy of state, places are reserved for the most honored guests, those whose proximity to the host or the crown marks them as powerful. From the kitchens below, a stream of servants begins to emerge, bearing platters piled high with delicacies. The fare is extravagant, a display of wealth as much as taste. Whole roasted peacocks are presented with feathers reattached, their iridescent plumes gleaming in the candlelight. Pies filled with spiced venison, swans, and rare imported fruits from distant lands tempt the eye. Breads of various kinds, fine white loaves for the privileged and darker rye for lesser folk, are placed along the tables. As you settle among the guests, the meal begins in earnest. Course after course is brought forth, each more elaborate than the last. Spiced wines and strong ales flow freely, served by attentive stewards. The conversation grows livelier, the atmosphere more boisterous. Yet beneath the merriment lies an undercurrent of caution. In this world of shifting alliances, a careless word or an ill-considered jest might reach the wrong ear. Every phrase is weighed, each glance measured. Entertainment follows the meal. Minstrels sing of courtly love and daring deeds. Acrobats perform feats of agility to the delight of the assembled lords and ladies. A troupe of players might enact a short scene, full of clever wordplay and subtle political commentary. Laughter rings through the hall, though some find themselves watching rather than joining, mindful of the ever-present currents of favor and disfavor. Among the guests, eyes stray often toward the host or the royal representative present. A nod of approval, a shared toast, can lift a man's fortunes. A frown or a cold shoulder may spell ruin. The politics of the court are played out as keenly in these halls of feasting as in any council chamber. For some, this banquet is an opportunity. For others, it is a trial to be navigated with care. As the evening wears on, the revelry grows more unrestrained. Cups are refilled more quickly, tongues loosened by drink. Old rivalries may resurface, tempers fraying at the edges of civility. A careless remark, a perceived slight, can ripple outward with lasting consequence. The wise tread carefully, ever aware of the fragile dance in which they partake. The hour grows later. The air within the great hall grows heavier, thick with the mingled scents of roasted meats, spiced wines, and the faint acrid tinge of smoke from 100 candles flickering high above. The warmth of so many bodies packed within these stone walls adds to the rising heat. The clatter of knives upon pewter plates fades as the last courses are cleared away. Now, the entertainment truly begins. The musicians, positioned on a raised dais at the far end of the hall, strike up a lively tune. Stringed instruments blend with pipes and drums, their melodies weaving through the murmured conversations and bursts of laughter. Servants move discreetly among the guests, refilling goblets, offering sweetmeats and candied fruits to those still inclined to eat. At the high table, the lord of the manor or royal host presides, his countenance watched closely by all. A smile or glance from him can elevate a lesser courtier, while an ill-timed jest may bring a sudden chill to the proceedings. Acrobats now take to the center of the hall, their movements drawing appreciative gasps. They tumble and leap with practiced grace, defying the limits of their bodies. The crowd claps in time with the music, though not all attention rests upon the performance. In whispered tones, alliances are brokered, favors sought, old feuds quietly rekindled. A courtier leans toward his neighbor, speaking low of a rival's fortunes or a rumor newly arrived from the capital. Here, amid the glitter of the banquet, the real games of power unfold. As the performances continue, a troupe of players steps forward. Their play, written in clever verse, draws knowing smiles from those astute enough to catch the subtle jabs woven into the dialogue. The characters, thinly veiled representations of certain figures at court, enact scenes of ambition, folly, and misplaced trust. The boldness of such entertainments speaks to the fine balance of risk and reward. A jest that pleases the host may earn applause. One that offends the wrong ear could bring swift and bitter consequences. The wines flow freely now. Deep red clarets from Gascony, sweet malmsey from the islands, and heady ales are poured without pause. With each passing hour, voices grow louder, the fine polish of courtly manners slipping ever so slightly. Songs rise from small groups at the tables, bawdy and cheerful. Laughter becomes more raucous. Yet amid this growing revelry, the watchful remain alert. A single word spoken too plainly might find its way into a rival's report. In the Tudor court, walls have ears and few secrets remain hidden for long. The dangers of such banquets are not limited to politics alone. The food itself, rich and varied, poses its own risks. Without modern understanding of hygiene, dishes may spoil unnoticed. Meats left too long upon laden platters, sauces prepared with questionable ingredients, or shellfish gathered from tainted waters can bring sudden illness. Guests fall victim to sour stomachs, headaches, or worse. In the days following a great feast, it is not uncommon to hear of courtiers taken ill, their weakened constitutions no match for the hidden hazards of the table. Moreover, the consumption of vast quantities of alcohol can lead to unguarded moments. Words spoken in confidence may be overheard, gestures misinterpreted. A courtier who overindulges may wake to find himself the subject of gossip or censure. Even those of high rank are not immune to such perils. In this world, appearances must be carefully maintained. A single misstep at such a banquet may undo months of careful maneuvering. As the night wears on, some guests discreetly withdraw, their duties or caution prompting an early departure. Others linger, drawn by the warmth of fellowship or the allure of further opportunity. The hall grows quieter by degrees, though small groups remain in corners, deep in conversation. The servants, ever vigilant, begin the long task of clearing away the remnants of the feast. The great hearths burn low, their light casting long shadows across the stone floor. For those who depart into the cool night air, the city awaits beyond the palace gates. Carriages rumble away through the cobbled streets, the hooves of horses echoing in the darkness. The revelry of the evening fades behind them, replaced by the familiar sounds of London at rest. Yet for many, the consequences of this night will linger. A new alliance forged, a slight remembered, a rumor born amid the laughter and wine. The banquet, though ended, continues to shape the fortunes of those who dare to partake. Chapter 5. The plague returns, the year turns, and with it comes the shifting fortunes of the city. Spring brings new life to the meadows beyond London, but within its crowded streets, a darker presence stirs. Rumors spread first in whispers, then in hurried words exchanged across marketplaces and over alehouse tables. The sickness has returned. The plague, that old and terrible scourge, creeps once more into the heart of the city. Imagine yourself walking through London's bustling lanes as the first signs emerge. A merchant's stall stands shuttered without warning. A familiar face is absent from the morning crowd. Whispers of sudden illness drift through the markets. Soon these whispers grow louder. Lists of the dead appear posted at the parish church, their numbers slowly rising. The black crosses, hastily painted upon certain doors, declare the grim truth for all to see. Plague within. The symptoms, once recognized, are unmistakable. Swelling lumps appear beneath the arms or at the neck, tender to the touch and darkening in hue. Fever follows swiftly. The afflicted writhing in their beds, sweat-soaked and gasping. In the crowded homes of London's poor, the sickness spreads with merciless speed. Families confined to single rooms, sharing cramped quarters with neighbors, find escape impossible. One by one, the signs appear among them. Panic takes hold. Those who can afford it flee the city, seeking refuge in the countryside. The wealthy load their carriages and depart with haste, their households trailing in their wake. Country estates, inns, and distant villages swell with these sudden exiles. Yet, even in flight, safety is not guaranteed. The sickness travels with the living, invisible yet ever-present. No household, no matter how grand, can be certain it will remain untouched. For those left behind, life narrows to survival. Streets once lively fall silent. The constant noise of London is replaced by an eerie hush. Doors remain shut. Windows are barred. The dead are collected under cover of night, their bodies borne away upon carts to mass graves. The air grows foul with the scent of death. Smoke rises from the chimneys of the city's poor, where herbal fires are burned in vain hope of purification. Physicians, clad in long robes and protective hoods, move among the afflicted. Their knowledge is limited, their remedies few. Herbs are burned, amulets worn, prayers offered. Some turn to bloodletting, others to charms and potions of dubious merit. The sick are quarantined where possible. Their homes marked by the dreaded crosses and watched by the city's appointed guards. Yet containment is a fragile hope. The plague respects neither wealth nor station. Superstition flourishes in this climate of fear. Some blame the miasmas that rise from the Thames and the city's sewers. Others point to the alignment of the stars or the wrath of divine forces. Charms and talismans sell for high prices in the markets. Priests and friars offer comfort where they can, though many fear to visit the homes of the sick. In the churches, prayers are said for the deliverance of the city. The voices of the faithful rising in echoing halls grown thin with attendance. The rhythms of daily life collapse, markets to stand empty. Work ceases, the theaters close their doors, schools are abandoned. Even the tolling of church bells grows sporadic as parishes lose their clergy to the sickness. For many Londoners, existence is reduced to confinement and waiting. The uncertainty weighs heavily upon them. Each cough, each fevered breath, stirs fresh dread. Neighbors watch one another with wary eyes, fearing the first signs of contagion. Yet, amid the terror, life persists. Some remain to care for the sick, driven by duty or simple humanity. Apothecaries prepare what remedies they can. Monks and nuns tend to the dying, their courage a quiet defiance of the plague's shadow. Families draw closer, offering what comfort they can. The bonds of community, strained but not broken, endure even in these darkest hours. Outside the city walls, bonfires burn, their smoke rising into the gray skies. Goods suspected of harboring the sickness are destroyed. Strangers arriving from distant towns are watched carefully, questioned, sometimes turned away. The countryside holds its own fears, wary of the contagion that seeps outward from the stricken city. In time, the sickness will abate, as it has before. The winds will shift, the warm months will pass, and life will slowly return to the city. But for now, London stands gripped by fear, its streets silent beneath the pall of plague. The toll of the plague weighs heavily upon London as the weeks turn into months. The death carts, once rare sights, now rumble through the streets each day, their grim cargo growing ever larger. Men clad in black hoods and long robes move with weary purpose, collecting the dead from marked houses. The mournful cry of "Bring out your dead" echoes across the lanes, a sound that chills the heart of any who hear it. The once vibrant city seemed caught in a long and dreadful breath, waiting for a release that does not come. Burial grounds within the city fill rapidly. The churchyards, once places of quiet reflection, are now crowded with fresh mounds of earth. The bells toll for each passing soul, though the chimes grow duller with repetition. In desperation, new pits are dug beyond the walls, great trenches where the dead are laid in rows, covered hastily to stave off the worst of the stench. These mass graves become grim landmarks, their presence a constant reminder of the plague's reach. Within the homes of the afflicted, the suffering is profound. The sick burn with fever, their skin marked with dark swellings. Some recover, though weakened and scarred, but many do not. For each family touched by the plague, life is altered forever. Children lose parents, husbands lose wives. The survivors bear not only the weight of grief, but the lingering fear that the sickness might return again. Daily rituals of life break apart. Marriages are postponed, apprenticeships interrupted, parish records left incomplete. The rhythms that once guided the city's people are now lost to the uncertainty of each new day. Those fortunate enough to escape infection live in a constant state of vigilance, their interactions cautious, their movements limited. Even the simple act of sharing a loaf of bread or passing a neighbor in the street becomes fraught with suspicion. Merchants, once the lifeblood of the city's markets, face ruin as trade falters. Goods spoil on shelves, ships remain anchored, their cargoes unsold. The courts of justice slow their proceedings, unable to convene safely. The guilds, so integral to the city's economy and social life, find their ranks diminished. The intricate web of London's civic life unravels before the relentless advance of disease. The authorities, strained and uncertain, impose measures to stem the tide. Orders are issued to cleanse the streets, to burn infected goods, to close off entire wards when needed. Watchmen enforce these edicts with what strength they can muster, though their numbers too are thinned by sickness. The Lord Mayor and his council meet behind closed doors, their decisions tempered by fear as much as by duty. Among the common folk, hope flickers in small acts of resilience. Mothers tend to children with care, shielding them as best they can. Neighbors leave bundles of food upon the doorsteps of those in quarantine. Faith remains a source of comfort. Though many churches stand near empty, candles still burn before altars. The faithful gather in hushed groups to pray for deliverance, their voices rising softly in the stillness. In the countryside, the plague's shadow spreads unevenly. Some villages remain untouched, their people wary of travelers. Others are struck suddenly, the sickness spreading like wildfire through close-knit communities. The flow of goods and people slows to a trickle. Roads once busy with trade lie quiet, the inns and markets along their length deserted. A fearful distance grows between town and country, a separation that will linger long after the plague has passed. As summer wanes and the cooler winds of autumn begin to stir, signs of change appear. The number of new deaths begins to decline. The grape pits are filled, their edges marked with simple stones. Slowly, tentatively, life begins to return to the city. Markets reopen, though the crowds are smaller. Theaters raise their curtains once more, the laughter of the audience tinged with relief and remembrance. The bells ring out for the living as well as for the dead, yet the scars remain. Families grieve lost loved ones. The city's fabric, stretched thin, must be rewoven. And in the minds of all who endured, the memory of this dark season will not soon fade. They know too well that the plague may return, as it has before, lurking unseen in the crowded heart of London. Chapter 6. In the shadow of the tower, the city breathes again in the months after plague. But always beneath its daily life stands another presence, the Tower of London. Rising above the surrounding streets and waterside, its coal gray walls dominate the eastern edge of the city. To Londoners of the Tudor age, the tower is more than a fortress or royal palace. It is a place of imprisonment, of power, and, above all, of execution. Few who pass beneath its gates can do so without a shiver, for within those walls, the fates of nobles and traitors alike are sealed. Imagine yourself standing along the banks of the Thames on a cool dawn. The mist drifts low over the water. The city behind you stirs to life with carts and voices, but here by the river, the air holds a different weight. A small boat approaches, its oars slicing the still surface. Within it sit two figures, one a prisoner dressed in somber garments, the other a warder clad in the livery of the tower. No need for iron chains. The tower itself is chain enough. Through Traitor's Gate the boat glides, the arched stone swallowing it from view. Those watching murmur softly, for they know this ritual well. Another soul has entered the shadow of the tower. Within the thick stone walls, life moves at a slower, heavier pace. Guards in breastplates patrol the passages. In higher chambers, courtiers and officials attend to royal business. But for those imprisoned here, time crawls. The cells are cold and damp, their walls marked with old scratches and carvings left by previous occupants. Some prisoners are of high birth, permitted finer quarters, even servants. Others, commoners accused of grave crimes, languish in darkness, their only company the rats and the echo of dripping water. For the populace beyond the tower's walls, news of who is held within spreads quickly. In taverns and markets, tongues wag at the mention of familiar names. A fallen lord, a disgraced noblewoman, a conspirator whispered to have crossed the king's will. Londoners know well that the tower's gates open for few who enter thus. The scaffold awaits most who pass through its shadowed halls. When an execution is ordered, word spreads across the city. The appointed morning draws crowds from all quarters. The executions of the low-born occur at Tyburn or Smithfield, their spectacle open to the common mob. But when a noble or royal favorite meets their end, The Tower Green itself serves as the stage. Attendance is more select, yet still carefully observed by those with influence. Each such death is a lesson, a grim reminder of the king's justice. On such a morning, imagine yourself among those gathered within the tower's outer ward. The rising sun casts long shadows. A wooden scaffold has been hastily erected, its timbers raw and pale against the green grass. The headsman, clad in plain garb, stands ready, his axe freshly honed. Nobles murmur in small groups, their expressions guarded. Every man wonders if the winds of fortune might one day turn against him as they have against the condemned. The prisoner arrives, flanked by guards. Their step is steady, though the weight of the moment is clear. The crowd falls silent. Words of confession or farewell are spoken, sometimes with great dignity, sometimes with trembling voice. A final prayer is offered. Then comes the act itself, swift or clumsy, depending on the executioner's skill. Blood stains the wood. The body is borne away. The watching nobles depart in silence, each carrying the memory of what they have witnessed. In the days that follow, London hums with the news. Ballads are sung in the taverns. Pamphlets circulate. For a time, the fate of the fallen is upon every tongue. Then, as always, the city moves on. Yet the shadow of the tower remains. Its gates close behind new prisoners. The scaffold waits. In Tudor London, the wheel of fortune turns swiftly, and none can be certain where they may stand tomorrow. Long after the crowd has dispersed from the green, the tower returns to its usual rhythm. Guards resume their patrols, their boots striking hollow echoes on the worn stone steps. The warders speak little of the day's grim duty, though in quiet corners the weight of such moments is shared in muted tones. The walls of the tower seem to hold the memory of each life ended here. In its chambers and along its ramparts, a solemn air lingers. Life within the tower's garrison continues with an ordered simplicity. The lieutenant of the tower oversees all matters with careful attention. Supplies arrive daily by river. Records of prisoners are meticulously kept. Messages and royal warrants pass through the hands of trusted clerks. Beneath this ordered facade, tension always hums. Each man stationed here knows that power in Tudor England is fickle. A change in favor, an unwelcome rumor, could see any courtier fall. Even those who today guard the gates may tomorrow find themselves locked behind them. The prisoners themselves endure in various states. Some, graced by rank or connections, live in relative comfort within well-appointed rooms, allowed visits from family or retainers. Others, particularly those accused of grave treason, are confined to darker quarters where light and warmth are scarce. For all, the waiting is the hardest part. Each hour brings uncertainty. Will the pardon arrive? Will the king's anger fade? Or will the dreaded summons come, calling them to the scaffold? The yeoman warders, known in later times as beefeaters, play their part with practiced neutrality. They attend to the prisoners, carry messages, and oversee the daily routines. Though bound by duty, many carry a quiet respect for those they guard, especially when courage is shown in the face of fate. Tales of dignified final hours, of stoic acceptance, pass among them and enter the tower's long oral history. The tower itself is a maze of spaces. From the stark white tower at its heart, with its thick Norman walls and ancient battlements, to the inner courtyards and surrounding walls, it holds centuries of royal power and intrigue. Some prisoners walk the battlements in their final days, gazing across the Thames to the spires and rooftops of London. They watch the life of the city continuing, a world they may soon leave behind. Meanwhile, in London proper, news of an execution shapes public sentiment. Some mourn the fallen, especially if they had once been figures of favor or fashion. Others cheer the king's justice, seeing in it the restoration of order. Pamphlets, often anonymously written, recount the condemned's final words or speculate on their crimes. Such tales mix fact with invention, feeding the ever-hungry gossip of the capital. The scaffold's work is not finished with one life. In turbulent times, it may see many. A season of executions can sweep away entire factions at court, their fortunes undone by a single shift in royal favor. The tower bears silent witness to these cycles, its ancient stones worn smooth by the tread of countless doomed footsteps. Outside the walls, the common people observe all with a wary eye. They know that in this kingdom, change comes swiftly. A man raised high today may fall tomorrow. The tower's shadow touches all, from nobleman to merchant to humble laborer. It stands as a symbol of the king's reach and a warning to those who might challenge his will. And yet, the city lives on. Beyond the grim work of the scaffold, life in London pulses with energy. Markets reopen, children play. The river carries its endless traffic. The tower remains a constant in an ever-changing world. Its silhouette against the sky is both familiar and fearsome, a reminder of the price of ambition in the Tudor age. Chapter 7, Alehouses and Riots. Even in a city shadowed by plague, executions, and poverty, life finds its pleasures. Nowhere is this more evident than in London's alehouses, scattered across the city, from the busy lanes near Cheapside to the rougher quarters beyond the walls. These establishments offer a respite from the harshness of daily life. Their doors open early and close late. Within, the air hums with conversation, the clink of mugs, and the low strumming of a lute or fiddle. The alehouse is a place of community, comfort, and at times conflict. Imagine yourself now stepping through the low doorway of such a place. The room is dimly lit by tallow candles set in iron sconces along the walls. The scent of wood smoke and spilled ale lingers heavily in the air. Rough wooden benches line the sides of the room. A great hearth blazes at one end, its warmth drawing patrons close. The clientele is mixed, laborers with the dirt of the day still upon them, apprentices in leather aprons, journeymen seeking a night's ease. Among them, the occasional merchant or clerk, seeking company and conversation beyond the confines of his trade. The ale itself flows freely. Brewed from barley, flavored with hops, herbs, it is the staple drink of Londoners. Water is distrusted, its quality too often suspect. Ale, hearty and filling, quenches thirst and soothes hunger alike. It is consumed in great quantity. Each man with his favorite haunt, each house with its favored brew. The tavern keeper, often a stout figure of good humor, moves among the crowd, keeping peace and serving generously. Conversation fills the air. Tales of the day's labors, gossip of the court, rumors from the docks, all mingle in the low murmur of voices. News travels swiftly through these halls. A new tax, a foreign war, a scandal at court, all are debated over mugs of frothy ale. Opinions are voiced with vigor, for the alehouse is one of the few places where common men may speak freely, beyond the watchful gaze of authority. Yet with this freedom comes risk. The ale loosens tongues and tempers. A jest misunderstood, a grievance aired too loudly can spark sudden quarrels. Fists fly with little warning. A tipped bench, a broken mug, the scrape of chairs hastily shoved aside. Such brawls are common and, more often than not, swiftly quelled by the stronger patrons or the tavern keeper's staff. A black eye or a bruised rib is accepted as the price of a night well spent. Worse still are the riots that sometimes sweep from these humble origins. When discontent stirs among the city's poor, the alehouses serve as the first place where grievance finds voice and company. Talk turns to anger. Mobs form. The city, always on edge, can tip into unrest with alarming speed. The mayor's men are quick to respond, but not always quick enough. In those hours, London's streets belong to the crowd. Windows are broken, shops looted, cries echo through the lanes, torches flare against the night sky. The authorities know this all too well. Alehouses are watched. Informants slip among the patrons, ears sharp for words of sedition. Licenses are revoked for houses deemed too rowdy or too welcoming to dangerous talk. Yet no regulation can quell the deep need these places serve. For in the cold and hardship of Tudor life, the warmth of the alehouse is more than drink. It is fellowship, escape, a brief lifting of the daily weight. As night deepens, the mood within the alehouse shifts. The early drinkers have departed. Those who remain are well into their cups. Songs rise, some merry, some melancholy. A fiddler takes up a lively tune. Couples dance in the narrow spaces between tables. The scent of roast meat and pies lingers, though the kitchen has long since closed. Mugs are raised in toast after toast, faces flushed with drink and good cheer. Not all who stumble into the streets at closing will find their way home. The watch patrols, wary of those whose revels have turned to mischief. A drunkard may wake in the pillory or in the stocks, his misdeeds paid for in public shame. Yet by the next evening, the alehouse will fill again. Life's hardships remain, and with them the timeless need for company, for comfort, for the simple joy of shared drink and song. As the hours creep further into the night, the air within the alehouse grows thick, heavy with the mingled scents of tallow, smoke, sweat, and spilled drink. The hearth burns low, casting long shadows upon the rough plank walls. Conversation softens, slurs, or swells with sudden bursts of raucous laughter. Beneath the surface, the quiet rhythms of the city persist. Outside, the streets lie dark, save for the occasional flicker of lantern light from a passing watchman or a lone carriage returning from some noble gathering. For the owners of these establishments, the close of the night is a familiar dance. Worn broom in hand, they sweep the rushes, now scattered with crumbs, bits of bone, and other less savory remnants of the evening's revelry. Empty mugs and overturned benches are righted. Behind the counter, barrels are checked, their contents tallied, the better to prepare for the next day's trade. Wages must be paid to the serving staff, repairs made, stories of the night's more colorful moments shared and recorded. Alehouses are more than mere places of drink. They are hubs of the neighborhood, centers of information and gossip. Business deals are struck over mugs of ale. Marriages arranged, disputes settled or inflamed. News from the wider world finds its first telling here, carried by travelers, sailors, and merchants. In the absence of printed papers or reliable news sheets, it is through these human voices that London learns of victories abroad, of storms at sea, of the rise and fall of the mighty. But with such openness comes risk. The authorities, ever wary of unrest, keep careful watch on these gathering places. The Lord Mayor's men and agents of the Privy Council visit often, sometimes in plain garb, ears open for treasonous talk. Warnings are issued to the proprietors. Certain known agitators may find themselves barred from the better houses or quietly reported. It is a delicate balance. Too heavy a hand may stoke further resentment. Too light a touch may allow seditious words to take root. The potential for riot in London is never far beneath the surface. The city's poor, burdened by taxes, shortages, and injustice, find voice in their cups. A sudden rise in the price of bread, the rumor of a new levy, or the scandal of a royal favorite may spark outrage. In the crowded heat of an alehouse, where drink flows freely and tempers grow bold, words may turn swiftly to action. When such passions ignite, the consequences ripple outward. A crowd gathers, swelled by curious onlookers and disaffected youths. Cries ring through the streets, calls to arms, demands for justice. The clatter of boots upon cobblestones, the glint of torchlight upon drawn steel. London's narrow lanes echo with the sounds of defiance. Shop shutters are hastily drawn. The city watch, summoned by alarm bells or hurried messengers, must act swiftly to contain the unrest. In these moments, the alehouses stand empty, their doors shuttered by nervous owners. By dawn, the streets may be quiet once more, but the marks of riot remain: broken windows, scattered refuse, bruised and bloodied faces. The city's rulers respond with proclamations, arrests, and sometimes harsher measures. The names of ringleaders are posted, rewards offered for informants. Justice, swift and public, seeks to deter further defiance. Yet the life of the alehouse endures. London's people return to their familiar haunts. The same benches, the same mugs, the same warm glow of the hearth. The needs they fulfill are too deep, too human, to be stilled by law alone. Here, in these noisy, smoky rooms, the pulse of the city can be felt most keenly. Beneath the grime and hardship of Tudor life, amid all its dangers and uncertainties, the alehouse offers a space of camaraderie, of fleeting joy, of life shared in all its rough and honest forms. And so, from these rowdy, vibrant halls, let us descend into another world of shadows and scurrying figures, where the battle against vermin wages daily. Chapter 8, The Ratcatcher's Tale Beneath the Clamor of London's Markets. Beyond the chatter of its alehouses and the pageantry of its courts, another world moves unseen. In this world, the rat is king. It scurries through the shadows, slips between cracks in stone and timber, nests beneath floorboards and in thatched roofs. London's swelling population ensures an endless supply of waste, and with it, an endless feast for vermin. In the Tudor age, the rat catcher holds a necessary, if lowly, place in the life of the city. Imagine the streets at dawn, the sky still faint gray. The baker's boy hurries to his master's shop. The fishwives arrange their wares at the quay. And amid them walks a figure carrying a long sack and a bundle of cages. The rat catcher. Dressed in worn leather, thick boots, and a battered cap, he moves with purpose. His tools include wooden traps baited with offal, long-handled hooks for prying into burrows, and sacks for the living and the dead. A sharp-eyed terrier pads at his side, nose twitching. His work is endless. The wealthier homes summon him to inspect cellars where scuttling shadows disturb the peace. Taverns call him when stores of grain and salted meats fall prey to gnawing teeth. The markets need him most of all, for where goods and people gather, so too do the rats. He knows every alley and culvert, every midden heap and drain. In the damp, dark places of London, he plies his trade, nose long accustomed to the stench. Rats in Tudor London are more than mere nuisance. They devour food stores, spoil sacks of flour, chew through wood and cloth. Their presence spreads disease, though the true nature of this connection is not yet understood. The plague, carried by fleas upon these vermin, flares again and again. To battle the rat is, unknowingly, to battle death itself. The rat catcher earns his pay per head. For each rat shown, alive or dead, a few pence are granted. The work is not without risk. A cornered rat will fight, its sharp teeth capable of painful wounds. Infection is a constant threat. Yet the need is great, and those with skill and courage in this grim trade can carve out a living, if not a comfortable one. In the markets, he sets his traps with practiced ease. A bit of rancid meat or a crust of bread draws the hungry creatures. The traps snap shut in the night, their haul collected come morning. A well-trained terrier proves even more effective. Small, fierce, and tireless, the dog roots out nests, dragging shrieking rats from their holes. The bond between catcher and dog runs deep, built on shared labor and mutual dependence. Among the common folk, the rat catcher is a familiar figure. Children watch his work with fascination and dread. Housewives greet him warily, grateful for his services but wary of the grim cargo he carries. In taverns, he may be welcomed for the stories he tells, tales of the hidden corners of the city, of strange things glimpsed in the depths. Yet few would choose to share a bench with him too closely. His trade marks him as one apart. In the wealthier quarters, the rat catcher moves with more discretion. Here, appearances matter. A discreet service is prized. The finer houses may summon him by quiet word, wishing to deal with their infestation without scandal. He obliges, pocketing the extra coin such work commands. Behind heavy doors, amid fine tapestries and carved paneling, he does battle with the same relentless foe that plagues the humblest hovel. Yet the city's tide is against him. For every nest destroyed, another rises. The flow of waste, the sprawl of new building, the ceaseless press of humanity all serve to feed the rat's dominion. The rat catcher works knowing he will never win, only hold the line. His is a labor of persistence, of daily confrontation with the filth that others prefer not to see. As the day wanes, his sack fills with grim trophies. The dogs, weary but eager, press on. By twilight he returns to his modest dwelling, where the spoils are counted and the tools cleaned for another day. In this quiet hour, perhaps he allows himself a moment of reflection. The city sleeps, but beneath its stones, beneath the rushes of its floors, the rats stir once more. The battle will begin anew with the dawn. In the still of the night, long after the market stalls have been packed away, and the tavern doors shut against the cold, the true domain of the rat unfolds. Across the city, in every neglected corner and darkened crevice, they scurry and gnaw. The rat catcher, having spent the day among the living, often lies awake, listening. The faint sound of scratching in the rafters, a rustle beneath the floorboards. These are the signs of a constant adversary. His sleep is light and easily broken, for he knows that morning will bring new summons. With the first pale light of dawn, he prepares once more. His tools are few but carefully maintained. Traps cleaned and rebaited, sacks mended, his faithful terrier brushed and fed. The partnership between man and dog is forged in necessity. The terrier's sharp nose and fierce heart are as vital to the trade as the catcher's own skill. Word spreads quickly of new outbreaks. A cook at a riverside inn discovers droppings among the flour sacks. A merchant unloading spices from the docks spies movement in the shadows of the storeroom. In grander homes, housekeepers whisper of servants, startled by the sight of sleek, gray shapes darting beneath the draperies. The rat catcher is summoned, sometimes openly, more often through back channels. His presence is a tacit admission that even the grandest house is not immune to nature's creeping tide. The work is physically demanding and unending. Some days are spent crawling through narrow drains, the air damp and foul, searching for nests. Other times, the battle is fought in cramped cellars or beneath stables thick with straw. The rat catcher knows the habits of his prey well. He watches for the faintest traces, gnawed wood, tiny footprints in the dust, the sharp ammonia scent of a well-used den. He must also guard against the dangers of his trade. A cornered rat, especially one of great size, is a fierce opponent. Teeth bared, it will leap without hesitation. Many a catcher bears scars upon hand and leg, marks of a life spent in pursuit of the city's least welcome inhabitants. Infection is a constant fear. A single bite can bring fever, even death. The terrier too risks life and limb, its wiry body darting after prey into the darkest spaces. Injuries are common, yet The bond between catcher and dog drives them onward. In the bustling marketplaces, the rat catcher's work is often performed in full view. Crowds gather to watch the dogs at their grim sport, cheering as another rat is dispatched. Children peer wide-eyed, torn between fear and fascination. The market women, whose livelihoods suffer from spoiled goods, offer encouragement and small coins. Yet the respect afforded the catcher is tinged with discomfort. He deals with filth, with death. His presence reminds all of the city's hidden underbelly. The authorities view the rat catcher with mixed regard. On one hand, his work is essential. The city must be kept at least somewhat free of vermin, lest sickness take hold anew. On the other, he is seen as a man of low standing, rough and familiar with the basest parts of London life. Licenses are granted grudgingly, the fees small, the status negligible. The rat catcher lives at the edges of respectable society, his trade known to all but welcome by few. Still, he plies his trade with steady determination. Each rat caught, each nest destroyed is a small victory in a war that can never be won. London's growth feeds the problem. New buildings rise, new markets open, new waste accumulates. The rats thrive in the gaps between old and new, in the ruins of abandoned houses, in the dark tunnels beneath the city streets. The rat catcher understands this better than any scholar. His knowledge is hard-earned, drawn from years spent in the city's depths. He knows that for every nest cleared, another will soon appear. Yet he continues, not from hope of final victory, but from necessity. The work must be done. The battle, though endless, is his own. As night falls once more, the rat catcher returns to his modest quarters. The day's catch disposed of, his tools laid out for inspection. The terrier, weary but eager, curls at his feet. Another day awaits. The rats will come again, as they always do, and he, in turn, will rise to meet them. Now, let us leave this world of shadows and scurrying feet, and step instead into the bustling markets of London, where the daily commerce of the city unfolds in noise, color, and endless motion. Chapter 9, and the markets, as the first light of morning touches the spires and rooftops of London. The city stirs to life. Across its many lanes and open spaces, market stalls begin to rise. Merchants and traders unload their carts, their breath misting in the cool air. The city's markets are the beating heart of its daily life, places where rich and poor alike come to barter, to gossip, and to glimpse the wider world through the goods on offer. Imagine yourself now approaching one of these bustling spaces. The market at Cheapside, perhaps, or Smithfield, or the Poultry. The streets are already crowded, the sounds of commerce filling the air. Hawkers cry their wares in loud, practiced voices. The scents of bread, fresh from the baker's ovens, mingle with those of herbs, spices, and less pleasant odors wafting from the butcher's stalls. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, worn smooth by countless footsteps, slick with yesterday's refuse. At every turn there is motion. Porters strain beneath heavy sacks. Women haggle over baskets of apples and pears. Fishwives, their hands red from the chill, arrange gleaming trout and eels upon beds of damp straw. Butchers in blood-streaked aprons brandish cleavers, their voices rising above the din as they call to passing customers. The crowd presses close, a living tide of bodies. Pickpockets move deftly among them, their eyes sharp for unattended purses. The goods on display are as varied as the city itself. Local farmers bring cabbages, onions, and turnips. Imported spices from the east, costly and rare, are sold in tiny measures. Wool from the countryside, fine cloth from Flanders, pewter wares, leather goods, and all manner of tools and trinkets can be found here. For many Londoners, the market is not only a place of trade, but of spectacle. A daily theater where fortunes are made and lost. The merchants are a varied lot. Some, well established, preside over grand stalls with canopies and fine scales. Others operate from rough boards balanced upon barrels, their voices hoarse from long days of selling. Reputation matters here. A fishmonger known for fresh catch draws the morning's first customers. A grocer whose measures are suspect may find himself shouted down by angry wives. Word spreads quickly in these close quarters. Haggling is an art. Few prices are fixed. Buyers and sellers engage in spirited exchange, each seeking advantage. A housewife offers a copper less for a joint of meat, citing its lean cut. The butcher counters, praising its tenderness. A young apprentice argues over the cost of new boots, the cordwainer firm in his demand. Around them swirl countless such negotiations, a constant hum of commerce. Among the crowd move criers and newsmongers, their voices rising above the throng. They proclaim royal decrees, announce upcoming spectacles, spread the latest rumors from court and abroad. Their words, part truth, part embellishment, pass swiftly from ear to ear. In an age without printed papers, the market is the city's living news. Yet beneath the bustle, a sharper edge remains. Not all dealings here are honest. Scales are tampered with, coins clipped. Goods of dubious origin change hands in shadowed corners. The watch patrols the larger markets, their presence a deterrent more symbolic than real. Thieves and fences know the rhythms of the place too well, slipping away at the first sign of trouble. For the common folk, the market is an essential part of life. Here, one may stretch a few pence to fill the family's larder. Bargains can be had by those with sharp eyes and quick tongues, yet it is also a place of risk. A careless shopper may find their purse lightened, their purchase spoiled. The wise move with caution, their senses alert amid the noise and press of the crowd. As midday approaches, the market reaches its peak. The cries of the hawkers grow louder, more urgent. Deals are struck with quick handshakes, disputes settled with shouted words or, at times, with fists. The sun, if visible through London's ever-present haze, casts sharp angles across the worn stones. The day's business is well underway. As the midday bell tolls from a nearby church tower, the tempo of the market shifts. The crowd thickens as more Londoners take to the streets, their morning tasks done, or their midday break begun. Apprentices sent on errands, housewives with lists in hand, merchants seeking fresh stock, all flow through the narrow spaces between stalls. The air hums with the voices of 1,000 exchanges. Laughter, argument, bargaining, and the occasional outcry of discovery blend into a chorus that defines the life of the city. Among the market folk, relationships are carefully tended. A favored customer may be greeted with a nod and a better price, while a known haggler might be met with a weary shake of the head. Friendships form over repeated transactions. A baker might set aside a loaf for a neighbor. A butcher might slip an extra bone into a loyal customer's sack. These small kindnesses smooth the rough edges of life, fostering a web of connections that bind the city together. Yet the market is also a stage for ambition and competition. Newcomers must fight for space and reputation. A young merchant with fine fabrics from the Low Countries seeks to draw the attention of London's wealthier citizens, arranging his wares with care and calling out to passing ladies. An aging vendor, his cart sagging with tired produce, must rely on charm and low prices to move his goods. The old and the new, the prosperous and the struggling, all share this common ground. Entertainers thread through the crowd, seeking coin for their skills. Jugglers toss bright balls into the air, children clapping with delight. A man with a dancing bear draws a circle of curious onlookers. Nearby, A seller of ballads hawks printed sheets of song, the tales of love, crime, and heroism set to verse. His voice rises above the din, offering news and entertainment to those with a spare penny. Yet even amid the gaiety, dangers lurk. The sharp-eyed pickpocket watches for distracted shoppers, slipping deft fingers into purses and pouches. Market disputes can flare into heated quarrels. A dispute over spoiled fish or short weight might draw a crowd in moments. Shouts echo through the stalls. The watch arrives, sometimes too late to do more than scatter the gathering. Food is everywhere, tempting both the hungry and the wary. Baked pies, their crusts golden, steam from vendors' carts. Cook shops serve hot pottage, the aroma thick with herbs and meat. Sweetmeats and confections glisten under the midday sun, yet not all is as it seems. Without regulation, freshness is uncertain. Spoiled goods are often disguised with heavy spices. A careless meal can bring illness, a risk accepted as part of the daily life. As the sun moves westward, the market begins to ease. The cries of the hawkers grow less urgent. The best goods have been sold, the choicest produce gone to those who came early. Stalls begin to empty, carts readied for the return journey. For the market folk, another day's labor draws to a close. Coins are counted, goods tallied. Friendships are renewed, rivalries measured. The rhythms of the market, familiar and constant, prepared to begin anew with the next dawn. For the common Londoner, a day at market is more than commerce. It is connection to the life of the city, a pulse of human energy that weaves through every level of society. From the lowest beggar to the grandest noble's steward, all find reason to walk these crowded lanes. In the market, the city breathes. Its stories unfold in 100 voices. Its fortunes turn with each exchange. Here, in the heart of London, life's endless drama plays out beneath the open sky. Now, from the open air of the marketplace, we turn to the stark chambers where medicine is practiced without mercy, and where the surgeon's knife holds the balance of life and death. Chapter 9 and the markets as the first light of morning touches the spires and rooftops of London. The city stirs to life. Across its many lanes and open spaces, market stalls begin to rise. Merchants and traders unload their carts, their breath misting in the cool air. The city's markets are the beating heart of its daily life, places where rich and poor alike come to barter, to gossip, and to glimpse the wider world through the goods on offer. Imagine yourself now approaching one of these bustling spaces. The market at Cheapside, perhaps, or Smithfield, or the Poultry. The streets are already crowded, the sounds of commerce filling the air. Hawkers cry their wares in loud, practiced voices. The scents of bread, fresh from the baker's ovens, mingle with those of herbs, spices, and less pleasant odors wafting from the butcher's stalls. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, worn smooth by countless footsteps, slick with yesterday's refuse. At every turn, there is motion. Porters strain beneath heavy sacks. Women haggle over baskets of apples and pears. Fishwives, their hands red from the chill, arrange gleaming trout and eels upon beds of damp straw. Butchers in blood-streaked aprons brandish cleavers, their voices rising above the din as they call to passing customers. The crowd presses close, a living tide of bodies. Pickpockets move deftly among them, their eyes sharp for unattended purses. The goods on display are as varied as the city itself. Local farmers bring cabbages, onions, and turnips. Imported spices from the east, costly and rare, are sold in tiny measures. Wool from the countryside, fine cloth from Flanders, pewter wares, leather goods, and all manner of tools and trinkets can be found here. For many Londoners, the market is not only a place of trade, but of spectacle. A daily theater where fortunes are made and lost. The merchants are a varied lot. Some, well established, preside over grand stalls with canopies and fine scales. Others operate from rough boards balanced upon barrels, their voices hoarse from long days of selling. Reputation matters here. A fishmonger known for fresh catch draws the morning's first customers. A grocer whose measures are suspect may find himself shouted down by angry wives. Word spreads quickly in these close quarters. Haggling is an art. Few prices are fixed. Buyers and sellers engage in spirited exchange, each seeking advantage. A housewife offers a copper less for a joint of meat, citing its lean cut. The butcher counters, praising its tenderness. A young apprentice argues over the cost of new boots, the cordwainer firm in his demand. Around them swirl countless such negotiations, a constant hum of commerce. Among the crowd move criers and newsmongers, their voices rising above the throng. They proclaim royal decrees, announce upcoming spectacles, spread the latest rumors from court and abroad. Their words, part truth, part embellishment, pass swiftly from ear to ear. In an age without printed papers, the market is the city's living news. Yet beneath the bustle, a sharper edge remains. Not all dealings here are honest. Scales are tampered with, coins clipped. Goods of dubious origin change hands in shadowed corners. The watch patrols the larger markets, their presence a deterrent more symbolic than real. Thieves and fences know the rhythms of the place too well, slipping away at the first sign of trouble. For the common folk, the market is an essential part of life. Here, one may stretch a few pence to fill the family's larder. Bargains can be had by those with sharp eyes and quick tongues. Yet it is also a place of risk. A careless shopper may find their purse lightened, their purchase spoiled. The wise move with caution, their senses alert amid the noise and press of the crowd. As midday approaches, the market reaches its peak. The cries of the hawkers grow louder. Deals are struck with quick handshakes, disputes settled with shouted words or, at times, with fists. The sun, if visible through London's ever-present haze, casts sharp angles across the worn stones. The day's business is well underway. As the midday bell tolls from a nearby church tower, the tempo of the market shifts. The crowd thickens as more Londoners take to the streets, their morning tasks done, or their midday break begun. Apprentices sent on errands, housewives with lists in hand, merchants seeking fresh stock, all flow through the narrow spaces between stalls. The air hums with the voices of 1,000 exchanges. Laughter, argument, bargaining, and the occasional outcry of discovery blend into a chorus that defines the life of a city. Among the market folk, relationships are carefully tended. A favored customer may be greeted with a nod and a better price, while a known haggler might be met with a weary shake of the head. Friendships form over repeated transactions. A baker might set aside a loaf for a neighbor. A butcher might slip an extra bone into a loyal customer's sack. These small kindnesses smooth the rough edges of life, fostering a web of connections that bind the city together. Yet the market is also a stage for ambition and competition. Newcomers must fight for space and reputation. A young merchant with fine fabrics from the Low Countries seeks to draw the attention of London's wealthier citizens, arranging his wares with care and calling out to passing ladies. An aging vendor, his cart sagging with tired produce, must rely on charm and low prices to move his goods. The old and the new, the prosperous and the struggling, all share this common ground. Entertainers thread through the crowd, seeking coin for their skills. Jugglers toss bright balls into the air, children clapping with delight. A man with a dancing bear draws a circle of curious onlookers. Nearby, a seller of ballads hawks printed sheets of song, the tales of love, crime, and heroism set to verse. His voice rises above the din, offering news and entertainment to those with a spare penny. Yet even amid the gaiety, dangers lurk. The sharp-eyed pickpocket watches for distracted shoppers, slipping deft fingers into purses and pouches. Market disputes can flare into heated quarrels. A dispute over spoiled fish or short wait might draw a crowd in moments. Shouts echo through the stalls. The watch arrives, sometimes too late to do more than scatter the gathering. Food is everywhere, tempting both the hungry and the wary. Baked pies, their crusts golden, steam from vendors' carts. Cook shops serve hot pottage, the aroma thick with herbs and meat. Sweetmeats and confections glisten under the midday sun, yet not all is as it seems. Without regulation, freshness is uncertain. Spoiled goods are often disguised with heavy spices. A careless meal can bring illness, a risk accepted as part of the daily life. As the sun moves westward, the market begins to ease. The cries of the hawkers grow less urgent. The best goods have been sold, the choicest produce gone to those who came early. Stalls begin to empty, carts readied for the return journey. For the market folk, another day's labor draws to a close. Coins are counted, goods tallied. Friendships are renewed, rivalries measured. The rhythms of the market, familiar and constant, prepared to begin anew with the next dawn. For the common Londoner, a day at market is more than commerce. It is connection to the life of the city, a pulse of human energy that weaves through every level of society. From the lowest beggar to the grandest noble's steward, all find reason to walk these crowded lanes. In the market, the city breathes. Its stories unfold in 100 voices. Its fortunes turn with each exchange. Here, in the heart of London, life's endless drama plays out beneath the open sky. Now, from the open air of the marketplace, we turn to the stark chambers where medicine is practiced without mercy, and where the surgeon's knife holds the balance of life and death. Chapter 10. The Surgeon's Knife in a city as large and crowded as Tudor London. Sickness and injury are constant companions. The narrow streets, the poor diet, the hard labor of daily life all take their toll. And when illness strikes or accident befalls, there are few avenues for relief. For most Londoners, the barber surgeon is the first and often only recourse. His shop, marked by the familiar red and white pole, stands open to the street. Within, the tools of his trade await. Here, medicine is a rough and painful affair, where survival depends as much upon the body's strength as upon the surgeon's skill. Step now into such a place. The room is small, its walls lined with shelves, holding jars of herbs, ointments, and mysterious powders. On a heavy wooden table, stained with old blood, rests a scattering of instruments. Knives of varying length and sharpness, saws with jagged teeth, forceps, hooks, and needles. The air is thick with the mingled scents of strong spirits, crushed herbs, and the faint iron tang of old wounds. A brazier glows in one corner, heating irons for cautery. The surgeon himself is no gentleman of learning, but a craftsman trained by apprenticeship and hard experience. His coat is worn, his sleeves often rolled to the elbow. His hands, though practiced, bear the nicks and scars of his dangerous work. He greets his patients with brusque efficiency, for time and coin are always short. There is little space here for comfort or gentle bedside manner. The work is grim, the need pressing. Patients come in a steady stream. A mason with a crushed hand from a falling stone, a soldier wounded in a tavern brawl, a child burned by an overturned pot. Each is examined quickly, their injuries assessed. Some are turned away with simples and advice. Others are laid upon the table, their fates to be determined by steel and luck. Anesthesia, as it is known today, does not exist. A strong draught of ale or a measure of raw spirit is the only comfort offered. The patient grips the sides of the table, teeth clenched, as the surgeon sets to work. A dislocated limb is wrenched back into place with brute force. An abscess is lanced, the foul contents drained. Worst of all, a limb too damaged or infected must be removed. The knife bites deep, the saw follows, the scream of the patient mingling with the rasp of steel upon bone. Speed is of the essence. A skilled surgeon can remove an arm in minutes, minimizing the agony. Yet, even the swiftest hand cannot guarantee survival. Infection is the great enemy. Wounds fester quickly in the unclean air of the city. The surgeon may cleanse with wine or vinegar, apply poultices of herbs, but more often than not, the patient's own strength determines the outcome. For those who do survive, recovery is a slow and uncertain process. The risk of fever lingers. Old wounds stiffen and scar. Many are left crippled, their working lives cut short. Yet, in a world where death is ever close, even a painful survival is counted as a blessing. The barber surgeon's trade extends beyond the knife. He shaves and bleeds, draws teeth, lances boils, and sets bones. Bloodletting remains a favored treatment for many ills. The removal of bad humor is thought to restore balance to the body. Cupping and scarification are also employed. The results vary. Some patients swear by these ancient practices. Others find little relief. The poor turn to the surgeon out of necessity. The rich may seek the services of a learned physician, one trained at Oxford or Cambridge, steeped in Galen and Hippocrates. Yet even these doctors, with their fine Latin and elegant robes, can offer little more than the barber surgeon in times of crisis. Leeching, purges, and draughts of mercury or arsenic are common remedies, their effects often as dangerous as the maladies they aim to cure. In times of plague, a surgeon's work grows frantic. The sick pour through the city, their hopes resting on the thin edge of the surgeon's skill. Few can be saved. The streets empty of all but the most desperate. The surgeon, clad in a long coat and beaked mask, moves among the dying, a grim figure of necessity. His tools offer scant hope against the tide of death. Yet in quieter times, the shop resumes its familiar rhythm. The surgeon sharpens his blades, cleans his instrument as best he can, and waits for the next knock upon the door. In this world, where life is fragile and injury common, his trade remains in constant demand. The barber surgeon's day rarely ends when the sun sets. As the city darkens, lit only by flickering torches and a pale moon, those in need still come. An apprentice with a deep cut from a careless blade, a beggar suffering from infected sores, a pregnant woman whose labor has gone awry. The shop remains open, a beacon for those desperate for relief, for healing, or simply for the hope of survival. Inside, the flickering light of a brazier casts long shadows on the walls. The instruments of the trade gleam faintly. The surgeon's hands are stained from a day of hard work, but he sharpens his knives anew, oils the hinges of his saws, prepares fresh poultices. Every tool must be ready. In a world where life can turn on a moment's accident or illness, readiness is everything. Evenings bring their own particular dangers. The after-hours brawls in London's alehouses often end with injury. Bloodied men arrive in the small hours, sometimes carried by companions, sometimes staggering alone. Their wounds, earned in drunken quarrel, require swift attention. The surgeon works quickly, knowing well that delay invites death. Stab wounds are cleaned and packed, head injuries wrapped in tight bandages. A few coins change hands, sometimes none. The work performed out of habit, necessity, or simple decency. Among the poorer wards, the surgeon may travel to his patients. Guided by a small boy with a lantern, He makes his way through dark alleys to cramped homes where fever or injury holds sway. The rooms are airless, the air thick with sickness. He examines the afflicted by dim candlelight, feeling the heat of fevered brows, noting the pallor of the skin, the rattle of breath. Remedies are applied with the knowledge of long experience, though the outcome lies in fate's hands. His presence brings hope, but also fear. For every life saved, another slips away. Families mourn their dead, grateful nonetheless for the surgeon's effort. He, too, carries the weight of these losses. Each failure etches its mark upon him. Yet there is no time for reflection. The city's needs are endless. Tomorrow will bring new injuries, new sickness, new faces seeking his help. The barber surgeon occupies an uncertain place in London's society. Respected for his skill, yet shunned for the bloody nature of his work. His tools are seen as both instruments of salvation and reminders of mortality. Some avoid his gaze in the street, others greet him warmly, grateful for past aid. He walks a path between healer and craftsman, necessary yet never entirely embraced. Training the next generation falls to men like him. Young apprentices, eager but untested, learn at his side. They watch as he works, observing the angle of a blade, the pressure of a stitch, the signs of a wound gone septic. They practice on scraps of meat, on animal limbs, on the dead when opportunity allows. Their education is hard and unforgiving, their mistakes costly. Yet in time, they too will take up the trade, continuing the cycle. Beyond the surgeon's shop, whispers of new learning begin to stir. In distant halls of academia, scholars question old doctrines. The works of ancient masters are weighed against fresh observations. Anatomy is studied in greater depth, sometimes through illicit dissections. Slowly, painfully, medicine inches forward. But for now, in Tudor London, the surgeon's knife remains the first and final hope for many. And so the barber surgeon continues his work, day after day, year after year. His life is one of service, of blood and toil, of moments of triumph and hours of despair. In a city teeming with life and death, his hand remains steady. The tools are sharp, the table is ready, and the people of London, for all their fears, will come again. Now, from the grim work of the surgeon's table, let us move to the wide flow of the Thames, the great river that carries life, death, and the ceaseless motion of the city upon its dark waters. Chapter 11, London's River Thames, at the heart of London. Beneath the sprawled streets and the towers of the great churches flows the Thames. Broad, tidal, and ever-moving, it is more than a river. It is the artery of the city, the source of its wealth, its sustenance, and, at times, its sorrows. The Thames shapes the life of every Londoner, whether they labor upon its waters or merely watch its currents from the muddy banks. Imagine yourself standing now upon one of the many quays that line the river's edge. The morning mist hangs low, veiling the far shore. The water moves sluggishly, thick with the tides drawn by the distant sea. Its surface is broken by the slow passage of barges and ferries. The creak of oars, the snap of canvas in the wind, and the cries of the watermen blend into a symphony of motion. Above, gulls wheel and call, their sharp voices cutting through the damp air. The river serves many masters. Merchants load and unload goods from distant lands, spices from the east, wool from the English countryside, barrels of wine from France and Spain. Timber, iron, coal, and stone move by barge to feed the city's endless hunger for building and trade. Great cranes swing heavy cargoes from ship to shore. Stevedores shout and strain, their bodies hardened by long days of labor. The quays are alive with motion from dawn until well after dark. For the common people, the Thames is both highway and hazard. Ferrymen ply its waters, carrying passengers from one bank to the other. The bridges of London are few and crowded. A boat offers swifter passage, though not without risk. The currents are treacherous. Sudden swells can overturn the unwary. More than one careless soul has vanished beneath the muddy waters, their fate marked only by a fading ripple. The river's surface hides much beneath. Refuse of every kind drifts with the tides. Dead animals, discarded timbers, the occasional bloated corpse carried downstream from an unnoticed death. The Thames is the city's sewer as much as its lifeline. Every lane, every gutter, every household sends its waste toward the water. The stench rises strongest in the heat of summer, when the sun bakes the filth and the air turns thick and oppressive. Yet for all its foulness, the river is indispensable. Water is drawn from it daily, though those who can afford it seek wells or springs instead. Fishers cast their nets, hoping for eels or perch, though the catch grows leaner with each passing year. The poor gather reeds from its banks, mud for building, and driftwood for fuel. Barges carry the city's dead, bound for burial grounds beyond the walls. Life and death alike ride the river's flow. The bridges that span the Thames are wonders in their own right. Old London Bridge, with its crowded houses and shops, thrums with constant traffic. Beneath its arches, the river races dangerously. Boatsmen fear the narrow passageways, where the force of the current can dash a vessel against the stone. Tales of wrecks and drownings abound, yet the bridge endures, a vital link in the life of the city. In times of festival, the river transforms. Brightly colored boats glide across the surface. Music and laughter echo across the water. The court stages grand pageants, their splendor reflected in the slow-moving tide. For a few brief hours, the river shines with light and joy. But beneath the spectacle, the old currents run dark and deep, unchanged by human celebration. As the day wears on, the rhythm of the Thames continues. Barges move with the tides, the cries of watermen carry over the lapping waves. The city leans upon the river, drawing from it endlessly, giving little in return. Its waters darken with twilight, reflecting the glow of lanterns along the shore. The river sleeps lightly, ever aware, ever flowing.
As the shadows lengthen and the city settles into the quieter rhythms of evening, the Thames continues its tireless course. The flow of the river knows no rest, rising and falling with the pull of distant tides. Even as London sleeps, the water moves on, dark and wide, carrying the day's refuse toward the sea. To stand upon its banks at night is to sense the ancient pulse of the city, a steady current beneath the fleeting noise of human life. The river's edges are lined with structures both grand and humble. Great stone quays jut into the water, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of use. Nearby, simple wooden jetties sag beneath the weight of ropes and barrels. In between stand the water stairs, their steps descending into the tidal mud, slippery and treacherous. Here, ferrymen wait in the gloom, lanterns flickering beside them. Their flat-bottomed boats rock gently with the swell, ready to carry late travellers across the dark waters. Night upon the Thames brings its own hazards. Without the watchful eyes of the day, smugglers move through the shadows. Small boats, heavily laden, glide silently past the patrols. Casks of brandy, bolts of silk, and crates of illicit goods find their way ashore. Bribes change hands, warnings are whispered. The river, vast and winding, offers countless places to hide. In its depths, old secrets lie buried, swept away by time and tide. The poor of the city often gather at the water's edge. Here they scavenge for driftwood and scrap, search the banks for anything of value. On colder nights, they huddle together, seeking what shelter they can beneath the arches of bridges or in the lee of crumbling warehouses. The river offers little comfort. its chill winds biting even in summer. Yet for many, it is the only refuge to be found. The water itself, dark with silt and waste, carries stories unknown. There are tales of lost treasures resting upon the riverbed, of rings dropped from careless fingers, of coins and trinkets swept away in the rush of floodwaters. Some believe the Thames holds the souls of those claimed by its depths. Fishermen tell of shapes glimpsed beneath the surface, of cold hands rising from the gloom. Whether truth or fancy, these stories add to the river's mystique, a living legend that wins through the city's heart. Even in death, the river plays a role. The bodies of the executed, denied Christian burial, are sometimes consigned to its depths. The drowned are pulled from the shallows, their fates whispered about in hushed tones. The river giveth, and the river taketh away. It is a constant in the life of London, witness to joy and sorrow alike. Yet for all its dangers, the Thames remains a place of beauty. At dawn, when the first light gilds the water, the city's spires and towers are mirrored upon its surface. Birds wheel overhead, their calls echoing in the stillness. Bargemen ready their craft, pulling upon the long oars as the day's work begins anew. The river, ever patient, welcomes them once more. The people of London live by the Thames, as their ancestors did before them. They drink from its wells, eat of its fish, trade upon its surface. It shapes their lives, their fortunes, their fears. To know the Thames is to know London itself, a place of contrasts, of filth and grandeur, of peril and promise. The river flows on, heedless of the world above, carrying with it the endless stories of the city. And so, from the wide and restless waters of the Thames, let us turn now to another place of judgment, the gallows, where crime and punishment meet before the eyes of the city.
Chapter 12, Segment 1, Justice in Tudor London is a public affair. Crime, when met with punishment, is displayed before the people, an example meant to deter as much as to condemn. At the center of this grim theater stands the gallows. Whether at Tyburn, Smithfield, or upon Tower Hill, the sight of the scaffold draws a crowd. For the citizens of London, an execution is both spectacle and warning, a ritual woven into the rhythm of city life. Imagine now a cool morning, the mist clinging to the streets as people stir from their homes. Word has spread that an execution is to take place. The condemned is well known, a cutpurse caught too many times, a highwayman of infamous repute, a traitor whose whispered plots reached the wrong ears. The crime matters little to the gathering crowd. The promise of a hanging draws them from across the city. Vendors set up along the approaches to the scaffold, their cries mingling with the murmur of the assembling throng. Hot pies, spiced ale, and sweetmeats are hawked with vigor. Ballad sellers chant verses recounting the misdeeds of the condemned, the crude lyrics set to familiar tunes. Children dart between legs, their faces bright with curiosity. The mood is one of uneasy festivity, a mingling of hunger for spectacle and the deeper, unspoken fear of what is to come. The gallows itself is a stark structure, a wooden frame with a single crossbeam, a rope already hanging in readiness. The scaffold is raised, providing a clear view for the massed onlookers. Beneath it, the ground is churned and dark, witness to countless such mornings. The executioner waits nearby, a hood covering his face. His assistants stand ready, their eyes sharp for any sign of unrest. A trumpet sounds. The crowd surges forward, eager for a better vantage. The condemned is brought forth, escorted by guards. Shackled, their face pale, they mount the steps with unsteady feet. A hush falls over the assembly. The moment is near. A priest offers final prayers, his words lost in the breathless silence. The executioner checks the rope, adjusts the knot. A few words may be spoken by the condemned pleas for mercy, defiant declarations, or quiet farewells. Then, with a signal, the trap is sprung. The body falls. A gasp ripples through the crowd. Some turn away, others lean forward. The legs jerk and twist, then fall still. The sentence is carried out. Justice, as the age defines it, is served. The crowd disperses slowly, the vendors packing their wares, the ballad sellers hawking new verses of the day's grim deed. But the gallows work is not yet done. London is a city rife with crime. Pickpockets, thieves, and confidence men ply their trade daily. The courts are busy, their judgments swift. The stocks and pillories see frequent use, offering lesser punishments for lesser crimes. Public humiliation is a common tool. The condemned are placed in the stocks for hours, pelted with refuse and jeered by passers-by. Yet it is the gallows that commands the greatest attention, its shadow falling long over the city. Executions serve a purpose beyond punishment. They reinforce the power of the state, the reach of the law. The sight of a hanging reminds all who watch of the consequences of defiance. Fear is a tool wielded openly. Yet for many, it is also a grim entertainment. The people of London, hardened by life's uncertainties, find a strange comfort in these rituals of order amid the city's chaos. As the day wears on, the scaffold stands empty once more. The crowd thins. Life resumes its noisy course. Yet the memory lingers. Children recount the morning scene in excited whispers. Old men nod and speak of justice done. And somewhere in the shadows, another crime begins to take shape, heedless of the fate so recently witnessed. In the days following an execution, life in London returns to its familiar patterns. Yet the memory of the gallows lingers in the minds of those who witnessed it. The image of the hanging body, the creak of the rope, the final stillness upon the scaffold, all remain vivid for many. Among the poor, such scenes are grim reminders of the precarious nature of their existence. Among the rich, they affirm the strength of law and the reach of royal authority. But for all, the spectacle is one not easily forgotten. The condemned are not always hardened criminals. In a city teeming with desperation, a stolen loaf of bread or a quarrel turned violent can end in a fatal sentence. The courts dispense justice with little mercy. The gallows claims men and women alike, young and old. Each new hanging draws a fresh crowd eager for the next tale of crime and consequence. The city's balladeers waste no time. Within hours of a public execution, printed broadsheets appear, their bold headlines proclaiming the sinner's last words and deeds. These sheets sell swiftly in the markets, their lurid tales devoured by a hungry public. The executioner himself occupies a curious place in London's life. Both feared and necessary, he carries out his duties with practiced efficiency. The city pays him well, though his social standing is low. Few willingly speak to him outside of duty. Yet his role is indispensable. Without him, the machinery of justice falters. Apprentices sometimes learn the trade, drawn by coin or the bleak inheritance of a family craft. To be an executioner is to walk a lonely path, marked by blood and a weight of countless lives. Beyond the scaffold, the city's many forms of punishment continue. The stocks in Cheapside and at Cornhill stand ready for offenders. Here, the guilty are confined for hours or days, exposed to public ridicule. Rotten vegetables, mud, and worse are hurled by gleeful crowds. The pillory, reserved for more serious crimes, offers no shelter from the mob's wrath. Those who endure such punishments emerge humiliated, their reputations often beyond repair. For more severe crimes, mutilation is common. A thief may lose a hand, a forger, an ear. Such punishments are carried out in public, their violence intended to deter. The crowds that gather for these acts are no less eager than for a hanging. In a society where life is hard and uncertain, such spectacles serve both as entertainment and as grim instruction. Yet not all punishment is physical. Fines, imprisonment, and exile are meted out by the courts. The debtors' prisons of London are crowded with those unable to pay their way. Here, men languish for years, trapped by poverty and circumstance. The conditions are harsh. Disease is rampant. Food and warmth are scarce. Escape is rare. For many, a slow decline into sickness and death awaits within those stone walls. Through it all, the city watches. London's people are deeply aware of the thin line that separates lawful life from the shadow of the gallows. Tales of those who fell from grace circulate widely. The proud merchant undone by fraud, the noble caught in treason, the youth tempted by easy gain. Each story adds to the collective memory, reinforcing the boundaries of acceptable behavior. Yet crime persists. The hunger of the poor, the ambition of the desperate, the cruelty of the powerful all feed the cycle. The courts remain busy, the gallows well used. London's underworld thrives in the shadows, beyond the reach of watchmen and magistrates. In the alleys and taverns, in the marketplaces and dockyards, whispers of theft, conspiracy, and murder abound. And so the scaffold stands, ever ready. Its timber frame a symbol of justice and terror alike. The people of London cast beneath its shadow, some with fear, others with grim acceptance. Life in the city is harsh and often short. For many, the gallows is not a distant threat, but a present and terrible reality. Now, let us move from these scenes of justice to the bitter chill of winter, where the struggle for survival takes yet another form. Chapter 13, A Cold Winter in London. Winter in Tudor London brings hardship to all. As the year turns and the days shorten, the city grows colder, the damp air seeping into bone and stone alike. The Thames, sluggish with silt, sometimes begins to freeze at its edges. Hoarfrost coats the narrow streets, clinging to timber-bird walls and window panes. The pale sun offers little warmth. For the poor, the season is one of endurance, a battle against hunger, cold, and the long, dark nights. Imagine now the city in midwinter. The sky hangs low, a leaden blanket pressing upon the rooftops. Smoke rises from countless chimneys, its sharp scent mixing with the chill air. The streets are quieter than in warmer months. People hunch their shoulders against the wind, their breath rising in ghostly clouds. Beneath the thin light, the mud of the lanes freezes hard, rutted with the marks of cartwheels and boots. Within the homes of London's poor, the struggle for warmth begins. Hearth fires must be tended constantly, but fuel is costly. Wood and coal sell at high prices in the markets, and many cannot afford enough to last the season. Old timbers, broken furniture, even scraps of cloth are burned to keep the cold at bay. Smoke fills the close rooms, the air thick and choking. Yet without the hearth, there is no comfort. Food, too, grows scarce. The markets offer little beyond salted meats, root vegetables, and stale bread. Fresh produce is rare and expensive. For the laboring corps, whose work may be halted by snow or frozen ground, wages vanish just as need grows sharpest. Hunger gnaws at many bellies. The thin pottage served at supper barely staves it off. Children cry through the night, their frail bodies shivering beneath thin blankets. Illness spreads swiftly in the cold months. The close quarters of London's housing, the lack of warmth, and the weakened state of many bodies all conspire to feed sickness. Coughs echo through the streets. Fevers burn unchecked. The surgeons and apothecaries work without rest, though their remedies offer scant relief. Death comes quietly in the night. The mourners few, the burial hurried beneath frozen earth. Yet life endures. Families huddle together, drawing strength from one another. Neighbors share what they can. A crust of bread, a length of firewood, a bowl of broth passed from hand to hand. The bonds of community, strained but unbroken, offer comfort against the season's bite. In the taverns, where the fires burn brighter, laughter rises despite the cold. Stories are told, songs sung, cups raised to warmer days ahead. Even the wealthier citizens feel winter's grip. In great houses, tapestries are drawn tight to block the drafts. Servants labor to keep the hearths ablaze. The larders, stocked in autumn, slowly dwindle. Yet for them the hardships are softened by plenty. Fine cloaks and thick furs shield them from the chill. Hot meals and rich wines fortify against the long nights. The difference between rich and poor is never more stark than in the depths of winter. The city itself seems to hold its breath. The bells toll through the still air, their tones sharp and clear. The river's surface glistens with ice, the ferry boats forced to break their way through. In the poorer quarters, the watchmen walk their rounds with torches held high, their breath steaming before them. The darkness comes early and lingers long. London waits for the turning of the year, for the faint promise of spring. As January deepens, the cold becomes relentless. Ice thickens in the gutters and along the edges of the Thames. Even the bravest of the watermen begin to fear for their craft, the frozen surface hindering movement across the river. Barges lie idle, trapped by the frost. In some winters, when the freeze is harsh enough, markets spring up upon the ice itself. Tents and stalls are pitched, bonfires lit, and for a time the river becomes both street and square. Children laugh as they slip and slide, while merchants hawk hot drinks and trinkets. Yet beneath the brittle surface flows the river's constant danger. More than one reveler falls through the thin ice each season, vanishing into the dark waters below. Away from the river, the markets struggle. Supplies dwindle as transport falters. Prices rise sharply, and the poor suffer first and most. Bread is hoarded, meat becomes scarce. Women queue in the freezing dawn for a chance at a meager portion. Fights sometimes break out, tempers frayed by hunger and cold. The city's watch intervenes when it can, but the unrest is never far from boiling over. Inside the city's homes, each day is a small battle for warmth. Chimneys clog with soot, their fires burning low. The scent of smoke clings to hair and clothing, a constant reminder of the struggle. In cramped tenements, whole families crowd together into a single room. Their shared body heat the best defense against the night's chill. Mothers wrap children in what rags they can find. Old men and women huddle beneath layers of patched cloth, their frail limbs stiff with cold. The cold brings danger beyond discomfort. Ice forms within water barrels, leaving many without clean drinking water. Wells freeze or grow foul. Those desperate enough to drink from the river risk sickness, the icy waters tainted with filth. The surgeons see a rise in fevers, in frostbitten fingers and toes, in chilblains that leave skin raw and blistered. The burial grounds fill steadily, the frozen earth making each grave a task of grim labor. Amid these hardships, life's small rituals continue. The churches remain open, their stone halls colder than the streets, yet still filled with faithful seeking solace. Candles flicker before the altars, prayers rising in breath that mists in the frigid air. The taverns, too, remain a refuge. Here the fires burn hottest, the ale flows, and the weight of winter is momentarily forgotten in company and song. Children, resilient as ever, find moments of joy amid the gloom. They fashion sleds from broken boards, play games in the snowy lanes, their laughter bright against the stillness. Young couples walk arm in arm beneath the bare trees, their steps crisp upon the frozen ground. Life persists, stubborn and unbowed. By late February, the city watches the sky for change. The first signs of thaw bring hope. Icicles drip from the eaves, water trickles in the gutters. The frozen earth softens, the air grows faintly milder. The markets stir with fresh goods, fishermen venture once more onto the river. Slowly the grip of winter loosens. London exhales, the long darkness giving way to the pale light of early spring. The scars of the season remain. For many, the losses are deep. Yet the rhythm of the city resumes. Bells ring more brightly. Streets fill once more with the noise of daily life. The hardships of winter fade into memory, another chapter in the endless cycle of the city's life. Now, let us turn to one of London's most extraordinary spectacles, the royal progress, when the king himself comes among his people. Chapter 14. The Royal Progress. Few events stir London so completely as a royal progress. When the king leaves his palaces to move through the city or the surrounding countryside, all of London feels its breath catch. The streets are swept, banners unfurled, windows scrubbed, and garlands hung. Word spreads swiftly. The king will ride forth. For the people of Tudor London, the royal presence is a rare and awe-inspiring sight, one that brings both excitement and burden. Imagine the city on the morning of such an occasion. The sun barely risen, yet already the lanes near the intended route are crowded. Merchants, laborers, children, and gentry alike gather in eager knots. The scent of fresh rushes and flowers laid upon the road mingles with the more familiar odors of the city. Above the crowds, colorful pennants flap in the cold breeze. The houses along the route, from humble shops to grand townhouses, display cloth of gold, embroidered hangings, and family crests. The narrow streets, normally so grimy, gleam with effort, though the underlying filth remains just out of sight. City officials, clad in rich robes of office, move among the gathering throng. The watch keeps a wary eye for trouble. Vendors hawk meat pies and sweet cakes to the waiting crowds. Street performers, sensing opportunity, weave among the people, juggling, singing, or performing brief plays. The mood is festive but tinged with tension. A royal progress is a spectacle, but it also brings disruption. Roads are closed, markets paused, daily life upended. Soon, the first sounds of the procession echo through the air, the distant beat of drums, the bray of trumpets, the clatter of hooves upon cobblestone. The crowd surges forward, necks craning for a glimpse. Then they appear. First the heralds in their brilliant tabards, the royal standard carried high. Behind them ride knights in gleaming armor, courtiers dressed in velvets and silks, their mounts adorned with flowing caparisons. And then the king, seated tall upon a great destrier, his figure resplendent in rich fabrics and jewels. The sovereign surveys his people with a practiced gaze. The courtiers flanking him nod and smile, taking careful note of the crowd's reaction. A cheer rises, swelling and echoing through the streets. Hats are raised, voices shout blessings. For many Londoners, this fleeting sight will be recounted for weeks to come, a moment when they stood close to the person of the realm. Yet, beneath the joy lies obligation. The cost of decorations, of food and lodging for the royal party and its vast retinue falls heavily upon merchants and householders. Inns are commandeered, supplies requisitioned, servants pressed into extra duty. Those of means must offer gifts, both to the king and to his favorites. To be seen as stingy or unwilling is to invite royal displeasure, a risk no wise citizen takes lightly. For the king, the progress serves many purposes. It displays his power and majesty to the common folk. It reminds his subjects of their place within the grand order of the realm. It allows him to gauge the loyalty of his city, to reward allies and punish foes with a mere glance or word. And it offers diversion, the pageants, the entertainments, the adulation of the crowd, all feed the sovereign's appetite for spectacle and control. As the procession winds through London, its pace is deliberate. At certain points, the cavalcade halts to receive petitions or witness performances prepared in the king's honor. Guilds present costly gifts: gold plate, fine cloth, rare wines. The king accepts these with gracious form, though behind the formal smiles lies a keen awareness of who has given generously and who has not. The people watch all of this with fascination and care. To be seen by the king, even for a moment, is an honor. A nod from a passing noble can raise a man's standing. A jest or insult overheard can ruin. The city holds its collective breath, eager to please, wary of misstep. The royal progress is as much a performance for the people as for the crown, a dance of deference and display. As the royal procession moves deeper into the heart of the city, the spectacle grows even grander. Choirs of young boys sing from high windows, their clear voices rising above the clamor. At the great crossings, temporary arches of wood and canvas, richly painted, display scenes of royal triumph, of saints and ancient kings, of the might and glory of England. These grand pageants, devised by the city's guilds and scholars, aim to flatter and impress. The king, passing beneath, acknowledges each with a regal nod or a few carefully chosen words. Courtiers murmur approval. The crowd, dazzled, cheers with renewed vigor. For those closest to the king's path, the opportunity to be noticed is invaluable. Wealthy merchants position themselves in prominent doorways, clad in their finest garments, hoping to catch the monarch's eye. Gentlemen of the court mingle among the townsfolk, their eyes sharp for advantage. Women of fashion display rich gowns and delicate veils, their beauty another part of the city's offering. Every gesture, every glance is measured, for the king's favor is a prize of immeasurable worth. Yet behind the brilliance lies strain. The city bends beneath the weight of the occasion. Food and wine flow freely, but at great cost. Taverns and cookshops are emptied to serve the royal party. Inns overflow with courtiers, soldiers, and servants. The demand for accommodation forces common travelers into the streets. Prices soar. Even water becomes scarce as vast quantities are diverted for the king's use. Laborers work through the night, repairing streets, erecting stands, preparing venues for feasts and performances. The poorer folk grumble quietly, for while the nobility feast, their own tables grow barer, yet they dare not speak too loudly. To be seen as disloyal in such times is dangerous. The king's spies move among the crowd as surely as his heralds, and there are risks greater still. A misplaced word, a misfiring of the celebratory cannons, an ill-timed accident in the crowded streets could sour the monarch's mood. The city's officials move with anxious care, smoothing each moment, ensuring that all proceeds according to plan. The Lord Mayor and aldermen lead the way, their chains of office gleaming, their smiles fixed and unwavering. As the day stretches toward evening, the royal party reaches its appointed quarters. Here, a great feast awaits. Trestled tables groan beneath the weight of roasted meats, spiced dishes, and sugared confections. Minstrels play softly as the king dines beneath a canopy of state. The courtiers feast as well, though their minds remain ever on the subtle game of favor. To be summoned closer to share a word or a cup with the monarch is a triumph. To be ignored is a quiet fall from grace. Beyond the palace gates, the city continues to celebrate. Bonfires are lit in the streets. Ale flows in the taverns. The common folk dance and sing, their cares momentarily forgotten. Children run laughing through the lanes, wide-eyed with the day's wonders. For one night, at least, the burdens of life in London seem lighter. But even as the revelry fades into the small hours, the city's leaders know that the royal progress is not yet over. More pageants will follow, more audiences, more opportunities, and more risks. The king is a demanding guest. His favor must be earned anew each day. The strain upon the city grows with each passing hour. Merchants reckon their losses against the slim hope of future gain. The poor return to their cold beds, the warmth of the fires of fleeting memory. And when at last the king departs, his banners trailing behind him, London exhales. The streets return to their usual grime. The decorations are taken down, the wreckage of feasting cleared away. Life resumes its familiar pace. Yet the echoes of the royal visit linger. Fortunes have changed. Reputations risen or fallen. The city, for all its hardship, has once again played its part upon the grand stage of the realm. And so we bring our long journey through Tudor London to a gentle close. If you are ready, I will now write the calming outro for your video. Simply type continue. And so, dear listener, we leave behind the muddy streets, the cold winters, the noisy markets, and the heavy shadows of Tudor London, a city of hardship, of splendor, of constant struggle, and yet somehow life went on. Bread was baked, songs were sung, and even in the darkest corners there was laughter. If you've enjoyed this gentle wander through history, I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. What part of Tudor London surprised you the most? I do read them, even if sometimes I'm half asleep, cup of tea in hand. And of course, if you'd like more slow, sleepy journeys into the past, don't forget to give this video a like, share it with a fellow night owl, and subscribe to The Drowsy Historian. We've got plenty more history to drift off to. Until next time, rest well and dream of simpler times.